using this platform. So, right, I think we're live. I'll wait a few seconds before doing the intro. Brilliant. So, welcome to RetireJapan TV, the show where we talk about personal finance, investing, retirement, and life in Japan. And today we are thrilled to have Emil Gorgees. Sorry, I didn't check how to say your name. How is it, Emil?
Gorgees.
Gorgees. Damn it. Okay.
It's okay.
Welcome to the show. It's a real pleasure to have you on. And we've had loads of kind of questions and interest in your speciality. So I think there's going to be a lot of people either watching live or watching the replay over the next couple of weeks.
Fantastic. Happy to, I'm always excited. I love real estate. So that's why I got into it, and I love talking about it. So if anyone has any questions, please, I will talk you to death. You'll regret asking me a question about real estate.
Awesome.
We have actually mentioned you. Sorry, hi Emil. We have actually mentioned you previously because I did on this podcast a couple of months back. I did a quick sort of follow-up report of your real estate conference that you held in Tokyo, and I think you organised that, didn't you? You were the main person behind that. Is that right?
Well, Ziv, there was a group of us. So we have the Japan Real Estate Experts Panel. So, and we do a weekly sort of podcast and vlog. And so, the group of us sort of organized that. There's 4/5 key people in that. Yeah, so that was our group that organized it. And that was actually so successful, we're considering doing it biannually. So the next one, that was in February. I think February 4th, we had that. And that was a one-day event and our very, very, very first one. And the second one is going to be likely in September. We still haven't finalized the dates. And we're considering doing that as a weekend event. But sort of our company, realestate.jp, because we just did a big rebranding to the realestate.jp and we're still transitioning to that. We decided to sponsor that event and be the sponsor of that moving forward. So that's why I saw all of our branding on that particular event.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. So if people want to find out more about that closer to the time, they should go to realestate.jp.
Well, the site is not actually, I think that site is still offline. But okay. They can either just email me at sales@realestate.jp, and we can just put you on the mailing list and keep you updated. But I think anyone who's listening to this, they'll see it on either Retire Japan or the Japan Real Estate Podcast. If you just search for that, you'll find out information about that coming up.
Yeah, we'll definitely put that on in the Monday read and so on when we get some more details. Cool. All right. So Emil, how do you become a real estate agent in Tokyo? What's the kind of path to that?
So for me, it happened it evolved from me buying my own home. So I've got 3 children. So when I got married and had my first kid, or we were pregnant with our first kid, this was in 2013. That's when I started looking for a property. I've been in Japan since 2003. So this May, actually, in a few weeks' time, is going to be my 20th anniversary.
Oh, congrats.
In Japan. So yeah, reasonably long time. So I searched for myself, and in the process, I learned a lot. And I thought, I'm going to do it all on my own. I don't trust agents. I can probably do a better job and a cheaper job than if I were to go with, just use someone. And I'm habitually someone who always likes to do things myself, all the administrative tasks. So I was going to all the banks and discussing everything and doing it myself, and learned a lot from it. And after I purchased the first property, I thought, you know what, I've learned so much. And I was telling all my friends, it's great. You should buy property. It's such good value. The interest rates in Japan are 0.45%, I think, right now. 100% financing. You really should get it. And I was telling so many people, and a lot of my friends are like, hey, Emil, you should do this as a business. You should really, it's the same way when someone comes to your house and you cook for them and they say, you're a great cook, you should open a restaurant. And you go, well, that's not what I want to do. But I actually really like, being Australian, we inherently grow up loving real estate. It's a big part of Australian culture. And so I was thinking, okay, actually, that kind of makes sense. So one of the agents who I met along the way, it wasn't the person who I actually bought my first house with, but we had a good rapport and he spoke English very well. I said, why don't I host a seminar at your office every month, and I'll advertise it on Facebook, and I'll get clients in, and I'll explain the process, everything that I've learned, and then you can be the English-speaking agent that supports them, and I can get like a bit of a referral commission. And as we started doing that, I found that his staff were often they're just younger Japanese people, whereas all the clients that were coming, and they were single guys or girls, but most of the clients resembled me. They were long-term foreign residents, often with a Japanese spouse or a foreign spouse, just at the early stages of their family. They'd either just gotten married or about to have a child, and so, or they had a young child, and so I just resonated a lot better with the clientele than the Japanese staff, and they were almost just we could talk very casually as friends, the same way we are here, because we have that common. A lot of our life is quite common. We're long-term foreign residents. We like Japan, Japanese spouse, young families here, trying to navigate living in our particular circumstance in Japan. So rather than the Japanese people weren't, a lot of the sales and the clients were just disappearing after the initial engagement. So I started to be more involved and just get more and more involved. And over several years, I ended up doing the role full-time. And that's how I got into it. In Japan, to get the license, only about 15% of Japanese that apply for the license and do the test is held once a year, only 15% actually get the license. Wow. And it takes about, it's like 6 months to 12 months of study to get the license. But it's a bit different to how it is in Australia and the US, where in sort of 1 week of training, you're able to get a broker's license. Rather, the Japanese licensing encompasses a lot, like what the real estate attorney also covers. It's a much larger breadth of licensing than what we're used to as typical brokering. So how it works in Japan is actually, you don't need to be licensed as an individual. Your company needs to be licensed, but you need to work with a licensed organization, and they need to have a licensed agent. And a lot of times the licensed agent doesn't deal with clients. They just do contracts. So the salespeople don't need to be licensed. The agency needs to be licensed, and they are the ones that prepare. The office needs to be licensed, and the licensed staff member is the person who prepares the contracts and what have you. So that's a structure that I work in there.
Oh, okay. That's quite common, I think, like having someone with a kindergarten license on site. So not all the teachers need it. Or like my wife's uncle, I think, is an engineer, and his job is just to be there because he has a special license that the company needs. So they pay him just to sit there. Like,
yeah, exactly. And you're certain, and that license covers things like property management, common law, so about regarding construction and what have you. So for the actual general sales and viewing of properties, you don't need to cover, it's only as you don't need the full breadth of what the actual Japanese license requirement covers.
Right. So you don't have that then. You just have someone working with you that does.
Yes.
Exactly. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Okay.
Yeah. Like I don't like our office. We have 45 staff in our office, and we have about 1,000 properties under management. So we have a renovation team, and a renovation team has their own license. Property management has, I think, about 900 or so properties under property management, like just typical rental management. So if someone buys a house with us, and let's say they either want it as an investment, or after 3 or 4 years, they decide to move out, and they're going to a different country or whatever, we can handle that full rental management side of things,
right?
As well. And
45 staff.
Yeah, it changes and it cycles. So I'm involved. Yeah, I'm involved in the sales team, and the realestate.jp sort of brand that we're trying to build out now is really focusing on just the foreign market. Both, and there's two types of clientele that I'm focusing on. One is local residents like myself in Tokyo, looking to buy a house for personal use using Japanese financing. And the other clientele now, especially with the weak Japanese yen to the US dollar, is there's lots of foreign, typically American-based cash investors that are looking to buy real estate in Japan just as a cash investment, just because over the past 12 months, it's about a 25% discount just because of the low yen. And often these are people who, they have some connection to Japan. Often, like if, one of the previous clients was, he was a foreign guy, but his wife is Japanese. And so they have some kind of connection to Japan. And they were looking for a property that they could just buy that's being rented out, but they can just get a nice yen yield on it while purchasing when the US dollar is very high historically.
Okay. Do you only work in Tokyo, or are you nationwide?
So I just work in Tokyo, primarily because when we're looking to buy properties, especially for your own personal home, I like to go and visit the property several times, and you need to provide a certain level of service. So for me to meet a client every other weekend and take them out to view properties, it needs to be sort of within a reasonable proximity. So within a 1 hour drive. I live in just not like near Shinjuku and Shibuya, just in Setagaya, the west of Tokyo. So generally within a 1 hour drive. Down towards Yokohama is probably the furthest I would go with clients. Beyond that, it's hard for me to do a good job of, in Chigasaki or by the beach, Shonan area. I just physically can't get there every other weekend to show a client a property well enough. Whereas if it's more local, I can get an email and tomorrow morning we're out viewing the property.
Right.
So yeah, I think if someone is looking in a different region, a local real estate agent will be able to show you the properties, a bit more efficiently, and probably do a better job than what I can of meeting your needs. I like to provide a pretty good level of service, and I can't do that if we're just too far away.
No, that makes huge sense. Yeah. Cool. Okay, so do you find most people come to you with an idea of what they want, or they just like help? Because I've seen a lot of discussion on the forum recently, which online site to use to find properties before going to a real estate and that kind of thing.
I rarely get people that will just come and know off the bat what they can get or what they can do. So often clients will know what they want, like they want a house or a mansion. And that's kind of, they know the size, they know the approximate location, and a few aspects of the property. What they really struggle with is the financing side of things. Okay, and that's where they don't know what's available, or they don't know how much they can get, or they don't know what they're eligible for. Because as a foreigner, you have, people are concerned, well, what is the what are the residency requirements? Do I need permanent residency or not? And you hear stuff that, oh yes, I must have permanent residency, for example. Well, that's not always correct. Okay, so or I have to be employed for 3 years. I'm self-employed, I can't get financing. A whole bunch of stuff. Or even the fact that you see online advertisements, 0.4% interest rate, 0.5% interest rate. You look at it and it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't look that it's legitimate. And so a lot of people will have an idea of what they want, but when it comes to financing, they either have no clue what's available, no clue how much they can borrow, or what they're eligible for, or they may have done some Google searches, or just jumped on a forum and said, I want to get financing, and just had a lot of, amateur responses based on someone has heard from their friend. My friend had permanent residency and was able to get a loan. My friend had permanent residency and got rejected because they weren't married, because they were a single woman. or they're turning, they're 50 years old. So unless you get 35, unless you're, when you're over 50, you can't get a loan anymore. A whole bunch of stuff like that. Lots of misinformation, or it's not entirely incorrect. But what happens is each bank has their own rules, has their own policies about residency requirements, the age of the applicant, how much they can borrow, the kind of company they need to be employed with, and sort of the interest rate. The ideal scenario we try to achieve for our clients is 105% financing. So it's by 105%, I mean the 100% of the property value plus closing costs. So you are pretty much 0 yen out of pocket, and an interest rate of about 0.5 to 0.7%. Okay, on a 35-year term. So the same is what a Japanese national would get. That's our ideal scenario. And what happens is when people sort of will just do their own research, they'll kind of get a bit of an idea and say, oh, you know what, based on this, I'm not eligible. And they'll rule themselves out. Or based on this, I can only borrow 60 million yen. Whereas what I like to do is have like a consultation, just a Zoom call, not too dissimilar to what we're doing now. And except maybe with less people live viewing.
Everyone watching.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll just ask very specifically, what is your financial situation? What's your marital situation, your visa status, your income, what's your Japanese ability? How long you've been at the same company? What is your employer? All the relevant questions. And then based on that, because of the experience that we have, I can identify, look, for you, these 1 or 2 banks will be able to give you that top tier financing, 105% or 100% financing. Okay. And it could be a small bank, a minor bank, a regional one that does that, maybe not one of the mega banks, or maybe, look, one of the mega banks, we are able to do that. Okay. But that's something that I feel if a client tries to figure it out themselves, because they're not doing it all the time, and that information is not actually readily available on the websites on such a broad scale, and it's mostly in Japanese, they're going to be very, very confused by it. So that's what I can do very well. So just by talking to someone, I feel I can understand their financing and let them know within 20 minutes of the phone call, yes, you can actually borrow 95 million yen, including closing costs, and you're eligible from right away. Or, look, you know what, you're better off waiting for permanent residency because a few of your other conditions don't meet the requirements. Or, look, if you're self-employed and you're giving yourself, very, very low income, you need to plan 2 years ahead and change the numbers so that in 2 years' time, when you apply for the loan, the bank is going to assess you for 2 years, etc. So that's a really personal circumstance-based assessment, and something that you cannot find when you just look online and try to assess yourself with zero experience.
Awesome. Yeah, what I did, I got a mortgage about 5 years ago. I just walked to all the different banks and talked to them, just like, what can you do for me? And picked one that way. So it's probably the extremely time-consuming version of talking to you for 20 minutes.
Yeah, and look, another issue with that is, you can do that, and a lot of times though, they won't really give you a solid answer. They'll say, look, this is our product, and yes, you're eligible, but you don't know until you apply. You have to find the property you want and do the application, and then we'll give you feedback. What we have, because we're a licensed agency, is direct representatives from the mega banks assigned to our office. And these aren't just at the regular branches, but this is at the home mortgage center. So the person assigned to us, their day-to-day job is mortgages, home loans. And so, if we have a question, I can just email or sometimes fax a copy of your tax return, right? If it's a bit complex, if you get some overseas sourced income, some other stock, if you get housing allowance, etc. I can just, email or fax the bank a copy of your tax return, let them know what company you work for, etc. And then just I have their mobile phone numbers, give them a call and say, look, I've got this guy, Ben, he's looking to buy a property. This is his age. This is his tax return, which I just sent to you. How much can he borrow? And these are his conditions, yes or no, if it's a bit complex. And he'll just tell me right over the phone. And there's no record in the bank that you've actually applied.
Ah, right.
Right. And it hasn't actually gone through all that process. And what can happen sometimes is if you apply with a bank and it goes through the formal process, then you receive the either approval or rejection. Whatever it is, other banks won't actually know what if you apply for a different bank later, other banks don't know what your outcome was with a different application, but they can see a record that you have applied to Prestia or to SMBC or MUFJ Bank. They can see that you applied and say, hold on, you've applied to another bank, but if you got accepted with that other bank and we know their loans are pretty good, why are you applying to us as well? Right? Or what could happen is, let's say you apply to one and you've got a bad credit. Right? And when I say bad credit, maybe there was an old mobile phone bill that you forgot to pay, which you're not even aware about, but it's on your credit report. If you get a formal rejection from that bank, you can't apply to them again. Right? Whereas when we contact and get in the process with our banks, sometimes even midway, they'll call us and say, Emil, look, he's a bit too old, or his tax return, the numbers say this or that. And they'll give us some feedback and we'll just say, okay, if it's not going to work, let's just cancel the application midway. There's no formal rejection or approval sort of that occurs. And we do that without you having to go to any banks. We do all the handling and paperwork on your behalf. And only when it comes to contract signing time that's the first time you engage with the bank. And that's generally after approvals have already been given.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And is that something that you charge a fee for, or is it part of buying a property through you?
It's all part of buying a property. And unlike, I'm Australian, unlike Australia where mortgage brokering is a business in itself and you get a kickback, we actually get nothing back. We get paid nothing from the bank at all. However, it's in our best interest to secure the financing so you can purchase the property, because we only make our commission through the 3% agency fee for the sale. That's the government regulated fees, 3% plus 60,000 yen plus tax. That's the only place we make our money. But if you try to arrange the financing and you stuff it up, we can't get paid.
Right.
So it's in everyone's best interest. Yeah, for us to do it for you. So it's completely free of charge. We can get it done faster than you, more efficiently, less risk, and just a better chance of you getting the property and for us closing the deal. So that's why we do it. We don't get paid anything from the bank. The interest is too low for the bank to make any money to give us a trail. So yeah, that's how the financing side of things work, which in Japan is a little bit different to to other countries.
Yeah, well, I mean the interest rates. Like, what is it now in the UK? Like 6% mortgages now.
Oh yeah, my investments here in Tokyo are like 6.5% now in Australia. Sorry.
Yeah. My mortgage is still 0.5 floating. I thought it would go up, but it hasn't yet. So.
Yeah, no. So they've been the same. Like you touch on that, and it's been the same for I think 15 years now, 15 or 17 years. The floating rate has been 0.5%, and it's been very much the same for that period. There haven't been any interest rate increases. There's been talk about it recently. Now what's going on around the world. So there could be possibly with the variable, but that said, a lot of banks and central bankers still seems to be hesitant towards that. And even if it does go up, it's going to be fractional, not what we see where, it goes up from 3% to 6%. The Japanese environment just can't handle that.
Oh, we'd have riots. Yeah. We'd have riots if it went up 3%.
Well, business would collapse. Even 1% up, business would collapse.
One thing that I think you mentioned at the conference was that even if interest rates do go up, the amount that a mortgage interest rate will go up for a customer is capped by the government or by the law or something. So they can't afford to home on you.
Sorry, I've got my kids yelling. Hold on. Hold on a second. Let me tell them to be quiet. One sec.
Put some older music on.
Laying down the law.
Okay. No, they're still rioting. I've got my youngest and my oldest sort of arguing over, I don't know which bed to sleep on tonight, because we're out at a cabin in the middle of nowhere in Australia. So
you should buy a house. They're really good investment.
Oh God, yes. I won't buy a holiday house. Yeah. So yeah, you mentioned so the home loan mechanism to protect a increase in interest rates. So basically, every 5 years, your mortgage repayment cannot go up more than 25%. So if you're paying, say, for example, $1,000 a month, it can't go up to $1,250. Anything beyond that, even a higher interest rate, that's what the repayment is going to be capped at for 5 years. Now, let's say something absurd happens with the interest. You're paying $1,250, the increase. That's the most it will go up to. Within that portion, a large part of it will be interest. So principal repayments will actually be quite low. Mm-hmm. So over the life of the loan, and then after 5 years' time, they reassess it, and another 25% sort of increase might be what happens. Apologies, I have a crying child coming in the room. Hold on.
I want to see them. Sounds like a lot of fun there.
Sorry, she's crying and fussy. So, okay, hold on. I got someone else. Hold on a second. If you just give me a minute, let me.
I know.
Is that noise coming through? I think so. It would be.
Yeah.
Cool.
Whilst he's there, we are going to follow up with a couple of case studies, aren't we, in a second?
Yes,
so
we've got a few case studies. I actually was thinking about something like quick fire questions, like, how much can you borrow based on your salary, or
Oh, right.
How does it work with being at a company for a certain number of years and so on. So
are the online calculators accurate? That's what I'd like to know.
Yeah.
So
we've got a couple of quick fire questions for you.
Sure. I'm actually going to walk outside now. Actually, you know what? This might be a more interesting place for me. It's by a campfire.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So we're going outside. Hold on. I'll remove this. Hold on. Well, let me remove my background.
The background doesn't match the lighting of your face.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me.
We'll be back with Money Matters doing drugs.
Please. I don't know how to remove. Oh, here you go. Settings. Virtual background. Let me turn that off.
Wherever that is.
Oh, here we go.
That is very cool.
Hold on.
Somewhere in Australia.
Can you see the stars? Here we go. We got the.
Can't quite see the stars.
We got the fire going. It's hard to see the stars.
Right.
We got the fire going. I just need to find a chair because it's pitch black here. Apologies.
Now, Australian countryside somewhere, which just makes me think of spiders and snakes and all kinds of deadly animals. Are you pretty safe there, or is something going to jump out?
You know what? I'm safer than being near the children. That's for sure.
Oh, okay, that's right. Fair enough.
Yeah. Let me put this. Give me 1 second. I'll put this back in. That's maybe just be a little bit better. Yeah. Apologies for that.
Not at all. We kind of look forward to that kind of thing, actually.
Yeah. God. Yeah. Look. So yeah, I've got 3 children. 9, 7, and 5. So
wow.
Yeah, 3 little kids, 9, 7, 5. So and most of my clients are like, this is chaos. So I think every one of my Zooms that I have with clients ends up either my kids are coming in or their kids are coming in. So it's very, very common. But my clients all tend to be family people, so we relate.
Yeah.
But apologies for that. Apologies for that inconvenience. What are we talking about? I'm sorry.
We're talking about the interest rate is capped. So, for example, if you've got $1,000 repayments, they can't be greater than 1,250. That's within a calendar year, is it? That increase
Within 5 years.
Oh, 5 years, I beg your pardon.
Within a 5-year period, yeah. So you're not going to get a crazy increase in your repayment that you're not going to be able to meet. It's protected. But what happens is a majority of that becomes interest and principal. So maybe at the end of the term, you're going to have an excess payment of principal that you need to pay. Right. So, but between now and then, maybe people like often will sell the property, right? And so they're not stuck at the end. There's lots of different strategies you can have, but also it hasn't been an issue that has happened. And Japan, even if interest rates do go up, it's not going to be like in the West where it's, these significant hikes, like anything over 1% or 2% is not really realistic even for businesses. It's not just home loans, it's businesses in general.
Right.
Yeah, I think most loans are floating loans in Japan, aren't they?
Yeah, over half. But there are a lot of people that take fixed loans, or a lot of my clients, some banks offer a 50-50 option. So 50% fixed, 50% floating. Okay. Yeah, because a lot of people often say, like, which is the better option? They try to think over the 35-year term, what's going to be the better deal for me? Right. And they are basically, it's pure speculation, because even the banks don't know what's going to happen in over a 35-year term. They try to forecast such that, it's going to be almost not too dissimilar, whether you choose a variable, a 10-year fixed, a 5-year fixed, or the full 35-year fixed. Over the full life of the loan, they want to have a net sort of similar value return for them. So by you trying to outsmart the bank, I feel that's you trying to basically go against the bank's economists. And that, there's no, I just don't think you're going to do a great job of it. And no one really knows. No
isn't it? It's basically flipping a coin.
But that's why they often a lot of banks will offer a 50-50 option. So half of it is variable, half of it as the full 35-year fixed term. So that way you're covered in both. And often I tell people how you should think of it. Look, if the long-term interest rate is quite high, the fixed term interest rate is quite high, it means that the bank expects that interest rates are going to increase. At year 35, it's going to be probably higher than what that fixed rate is. Right? At one point, there's a crossover. And so you're paying a bit more now at the fixed rate, and in the future, when it's higher, you're going to be paying a bit less. But with variable, it's okay. It's quite cheap now. And as time goes on, it might get more expensive because interest rates will increase. And that's something that I feel that's more reasonable to consider based on your life stage. So if you're younger, sort of in your 30s, and you're like, I'm starting a family. I'm just, and my employment is pretty good, but I think right now I need more cash. I want to minimize my cash flow expenses for mortgage repayments, and I want more money for holidays, for raising my children, being able to travel or send them to school, do school like kids activities and what have you. I've got rogue people walking through. Excuse us. Rather than sorry, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, rather than having people, rather than having, excuse me, I'm fumbled myself.
Yeah, actually, the Retire Japan version of that would be save and invest the amount you're not paying on the loan, and then you've got it for later if you need it.
Okay, got my train of thought now. So rather, the cheaper repayments now I can use to fund my lifestyle, being like, young family and, schooling, education costs. Whereas if you were to, and the big idea with that is if you're in your 30s, you think that your income is also going to increase. My peak income is not when I'm 30 years old, when I've just gotten married and started a family. It's going to increase. So as my income increase, as should interest rates increase, my income's also going to increase to kind of manage and to mitigate, to deal with this change in interest rate. Okay. Whereas I think if you're older and you're already maybe at the peak of your finances, and you kind of know, look, the kids have moved out now, and I'm going to be quite stable with my income moving forward, and I know what's going to happen moving forward. Like, kids are out, and I can forecast the rest of my life. Then a fixed rate might be a better option. So that's how I kind of think. Which one should you choose? Do you want the variable or the fixed? It's not where I think I'm going to get the net better value, because I kind of feel either option should be about similar at the end of the day. What should be is, okay, what stage of life are you in? If you're a bit younger and you think your income is going to grow over the next few years, then the lower, cheaper variable is better, because as interest rates rise, also your income is going to increase in that time. So that's a strategy that's more common.
I didn't realize it until now, but it turns out that's how I did it in our situation when I was younger. First house, a small apartment that we got, that was a floating rate because it was cheaper. And then the house we got now just a couple of years ago is a fixed rate, because I just don't want to think about it anymore for the life of the mortgage. Just, I'm cool, just not worrying and knowing exactly how much I have to pay every month.
Okay, then great. Yeah, okay, so it works. And we didn't pre-discuss that anyway, so just for the audience. No, but it's a legitimate way of thinking about it and approaching it, because the other approach is really just, you're just speculation and guessing. What is the better option, right? And for clients who do want to think which is the better option, variable or fixed, do the 50-50 if it's available, because then you're covered in both.
Do all banks offer that?
No, they don't. Only certain banks. Yeah, and that depends. Look, if you have permanent residency and your employment is quite stable, and you can kind of choose any bank, then you don't have restrictions on the banks because of your employment or residential status, then yes, you can choose a bank that has that option. But if you, for example, don't have permanent residency and you are limited to the kind of banks that you can choose, or your employment situation is a bit, strange or just changed, so you have limited bank options, then you may be limited to a bank that doesn't offer that choice.
That reminds me, actually, your sort of phrasing there, the terminology. One thing I picked up from you was that there's not really a black and white thing where I can't get a mortgage or I can't get a mortgage. You've got more options or fewer options. So people shouldn't dismiss, I can't get a mortgage because of my situation. No, you might have fewer options, but there's no sort of black and white yes or no.
Yeah, look, if you're not employed and you're not self-employed, like you don't have a job, then you can't. Even for Japanese nationals, you can't get a job. However, if you are here and you have a job, and like if you don't have permanent residency, but you are employed, and say you're not married to a Japanese citizen, you've only been here for 2 years, but you have regular employment, then you could probably quite confidently get financing, but only to 80%. So you need to put a 20% deposit, which for anyone from the West, that's pretty common, pretty standard. So that's quite available. And these, again, for the low interest rates.
Right.
Yeah, but the one where we talk about trying to get, needing permanent residency or Japanese spouse and solid employment, that when we talk about that, we're really trying to get the 105% loans, which include all the closing costs.
Right.
Yeah, which are the preferable, because interest is so low.
Yeah.
Cool. Emil, can I ask you some quick fire questions?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So is there a specific salary multiple that you can borrow as a maximum?
The quick and dirty answer is about 7 to 8 times the annual income. the calculation is different, like how it actually works. But yeah, 7 to 8 times. So if you are on a 10 million yen salary, about 70 to 80 million yen.
Awesome. Is there an advantage to going with a mega bank over a local bank?
No. No. Except we get a faster response. So we have direct relationships with the banks. So a local bank will take, a week to 2 weeks to get you your pre-approval. Whereas a mega bank, we can get it in like 36 hours. And when you find a property that you like and you want to make an offer and sign the contract, you don't want to wait 2 weeks for that property because it will go. And we lose properties all the time. The amount, like we see a property we like, we're ready to go. We try to make the application and we're just waiting for the pre-approval, and someone else buys it ahead of us. It's all too common. So the product itself, no different. But in terms of the timing, I think the mega banks, the fast turnover is where they really shine.
Okay.
Can I just circle back to your first question? The multiplier of the salary. How do bonuses tie into that? Because they sort of increase your salary overall, but then they're not guaranteed.
In general, it's based on the gross income, like whatever's on your Genten Choshihyo, your tax withholding slip. That's the number. So it will include bonuses.
Will include, okay.
Yeah. So just look at last year's tax return.
That's cool.
It's a good example.
All right. Next question is, how does self-employed people go about this?
They can also get it. However, even for Japanese nationals, expect to only get a maximum of 80% financing, 20% plus closing costs you need to put yourself. There is one product that will not care about your that will give you 100% financing. However, probably what's more important to consider when you're self-employed is any bank will assess you on, I said about 7 to 8 time multiplier of the salary that you pay yourself.
Right.
Okay. And so when we say self-employed, there's two ways to look at it. One is self-employed is you are just a kojin jigyo nishi. So you don't actually have a company, you don't own a company that pays you. You're just fully self-employed and you submit your own tax return, either a shiro iro or awa iro, white or blue tax return filer. In that case, you're not really a salary, it's just a business income. You have business revenue and expenses. And then what's left after that, the actual net revenue, is 7 times of that. That's how they calculate.
Okay.
If you are and often people who do that, there's this expenses seem to be quite high. They try to fit a lot of expenses in realistically. And similarly with the other kind of version of self-employed is someone has maybe kabushiki gaisha, a KK entity sort of established, and that KK gets all the money and they pay themselves a salary from that. Maybe they have 1, 2, 3, 4 employees, but they get paid as a director salary from that company. Again, the bank will look at that director salary and say, okay, this is your salary, this is what we assess you on. And again, a lot of times people do that kind of structure because they only want to pay themselves 3 million yen or 4 million yen a year, right? And to keep their taxes quite low. And so the bank is going to say, well, you're only earning 4 million yen a year, so you can just get a multiplier of that.
Gotcha. So they're not going to look at the company value or anything like that.
The value, no, but what they will look at as well is that the company needs to be operating in the black. It can't be in the red. So I can't just have a company and say I'm paying myself 10 million yen a year, and but then the company is not even making that. It's just fictitious money. That won't cut it. So they will look at the bank, the company finances as well.
Okay. All right. Next one is you said if you haven't got an income, you can't get a mortgage. What if you've got enormous amounts of assets?
So that they, especially for home loans, they look at it as, you need to have income and generally employment income.
Okay.
So,
So they'd be like, okay, use your assets to buy the home. Like, we're not going to lend you the money, right?
Yeah. Look, and generally people that have those kind of large wealth portfolios will have some kind of income stream coming in.
Okay.
But yeah, if you just have so much assets that you don't need to work, then generally be a cash purchase.
Gotcha. All right, last one. So you mentioned having a Japanese spouse. Does that ever make a difference?
Oh, yes, it does. So some of the banks, I mentioned, like, ideal scenario is Japanese citizenship or permanent residency. This is for the residential requirement in order to get to meet the residency requirement of the bank to get a home loan. But their reasoning being, if you don't have permanent residency, you're just on a work visa. If you get a job overseas, you can just leave. You have nothing tying you to Japan. You can leave, default on the mortgage, and the bank is stuck with a house that you've contributed zero funds to. But some banks will say, look, if you have a Japanese spouse, that's enough for us to feel that you have enough connection with Japan that you won't just leave. So in that case, yes, you check the residency requirement box. Again, that's not all the banks, that's just a small subset. And that's why, that sort of discussion we need to have sort of in a consultation. But yes, it does make a big difference. So if you don't have permanent residency, but you have a Japanese spouse and regular employment, then yes, we can get you 100% financing, even 105%.
Nice. And then we've got some case studies for you before we let you
let
you go.
But before that, like, there's one more, I guess, rapid fire question that that is good to know, an answer rather, and that's, you asked. This goes in line with the multiplier of what multiplier of your income. So about 7 to 8 times your annual income is how much you can borrow. And that's one way to calculate the budget of, when people look at their budget, they think, well, how much can I borrow? That's one limiting factor. That's the most that you can borrow plus whatever cash you have to put on top. Another way to calculate budget is by saying, well, how much am I comfortable repaying? Maybe the bank will give me 100 million yen, but I'm only comfortable repaying 200,000 yen a month. So the way to calculate is with, the interest rates that we're talking about, like 0.7% over a 35-year term. For every 10 million yen that you borrow, it's about 27,000 yen a month mortgage repayment. That's principal and interest. So if you borrow 100 million yen, that's 270,000 yen a month. Okay, 50 million yen is what, 135 to 140,000 yen a month is the monthly mortgage repayment. So if you think, look, the most I want to pay is 200,000 yen a month, just 200,000 divided by 200,000 divided by 27 is about 75 million yen.
Okay.
So that's another way to calculate. Yeah. So it'll be the lower of the two. Either if you're, how much the bank will loan you, or how much you're comfortable paying back per month.
Right.
So
you're spot on, actually. That rule of thumb. We borrowed just under 10 million, and our mortgage repayment is just under 30,000. So it's about
close. Pretty close. But okay, did you have a 35-year loan term, or was it a bit 30. Less than 35? 30. That's why. Yeah. So and another, sort of on that point. So a 35-year loan term, you have a bit more time to pay it off, which is why it's about 27,000. After you turn 45 years old, so the rule with the bank is the loan must be paid by your 80th birthday. So after your 45th birthday, your maximum borrowing capacity reduces by, 34, 33, 32 years, 31 years. So if you're like 49 years old when you get the loan, they say, well, you only have 30.
Hello, Emil?
Paying it back, yes. Have you lost me?
We lost you temporarily, but I'm guessing, you're saying you've only got 31 years left to pay until you're 80, right?
So that's why if you're saying your repayment is closer to 300,000, it means you're trying to pay that in a shorter loan term. So you're paying a bit more than 27,000 a month.
Yeah, but impressive. Spot on.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, we do it all the time. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, so we got some case studies that we'd like to comment on, if you would.
Sure.
So I think we've got 3. I'll do one, then Daniel can do one, then I'll do the last one maybe. So
Yeah.
this is actually someone I talked to the other day, and they are basically a husband with a very high income without permanent residency. Well, I thought it was a high income. He thought it wasn't a high income, but it was relatively high.
Yeah.
With a non-working Japanese wife. The husband doesn't have PR. What kind of options would they have?
Yeah, no problem. The Japanese spouse, 100% financing, 105%. Well, assuming they just work for a regular company, they're a seishain, permanent employee at a company.
Yep.
And how long have they been there? 1, 2, 3 years plus?
I think only a couple of years.
Yeah, that's fine.
So they've just moved to Japan. They've been there 2 years, maybe 20 odd million salary income rather.
Yeah, sure. And that's also the number that banks try to consider. Like 20 million is okay. They're on the higher net income.
Okay.
And again, they can probably borrow about 150 million yen quite easily on base, assuming they're under 45 years old, 35-year loan term. That should be no problem. Maybe even a little bit more. That once your income gets into those ranges, you can get a bit better than the 7, 8 times. Get closer to 9. Maybe not 10, but hold on. Are you frozen? Am I frozen?
No, we're still. No, brilliant. Okay.
Yeah, you can get a little bit more. But yeah, because you got only because there's a Japanese spouse.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that should be no worry at all.
Awesome. All right, Daniel, you had one, right?
Yes. So this is somebody I actually follow on Twitter. I got her approval. She's a single mother, so been in Japan a long time, married, now divorced, children, have been working full time for a long time, and just got a new job, which involves moving to Kanto from West Japan. And she went to one estate agent, and they said, "Well, you got a new job, and you're moving to a different region, so that's kind of like unstable." And they indicated that it was going to be a problem. She then went with a different person who said, "No, that's okay, but the deposit it works out about 3 or 4% on the total cost," which she figured was too high. I think because she was thinking, it could be 100% or 105% mortgage. So, a couple of questions there: is there sort of instability, a risk in instability from changing your job and moving to a new region? And I say, is 3 to 4% deposit too high? But it maybe doesn't sound like it because you've mentioned 20% deposit earlier.
Well, sorry. So they're foreign, but are they permanent residents?
This I don't know, I'm afraid, but I think so because they've been here a long time, working at a university.
I think so. If it's the person I'm picking up, I think.
Yeah. So okay, let's assume a permanent residency route. Then, look, I don't have experience with people changing jobs and moving location. That could, I think we can definitely find a bank that won't care that they've moved. But I can definitely see that, that the comments that were made, that would be something that, you've just changed jobs and you've moved location. The banks might find that instability. What I would do is I wouldn't actually just say that. I would be calling all of my banks and say, look, I've got this lady. This is a situation. She's just moved from, let's say from Kansai to the Kanto region. This is her new job. This is the company she was working at before. She was there for 5 years. This is her tax returns from the previous years. This is her new company, her employment, like past 3 pay slips. And her job contract is how much she's getting here. Yes or no. And again, I'll probably send these out to the 3 or 4 banks and have the call with them all within the space of an hour. And, and these are Mizuho, MUFJ, Rizona, and SMBC. Right. Off the bat, I'll do that. And then they're the big ones. And based on their feedback, then I might call a few other banks, directly just the loan officers that we have assigned to us and just get their feedback and have a good idea about which bank. But if she has permanent residency, I'm actually pretty confident there's sort of a government-backed scheme that will really not care about any of that. And generally, the big one with changing jobs, assuming you've been pretty stable in long-term in your previous job, the next job, although 1 year is better and you have more options, pretty much we can find a bank where the minimum term will be the probation period, which standard is about 3 months, but sometimes it's 6 months. So if in the contract it says, look, you have a 3-month probation period, once you clear that probation period, you can the 4th month's pay slip. When you get the form, which is generally the 25th of the month, when you get that pay slip, that's when you're eligible to apply.
Awesome.
And that's, again, the 100% financing.
A single parent then wouldn't really be a factor.
No. I mean, if they have permanent residency and employment, not really.
Okay. And you said so 100%. So it sounds like she got pre-approved for a mortgage that required a 3 to 4% deposit. Sometimes the case, I guess, is it?
I'm sorry, you broke up.
Oh,
Daniel.
Oh, okay. So she's been pre-approved for a mortgage with a 3 to 4% deposit. So
yeah,
she look elsewhere to try and get 105% mortgage, or is that like?
She can try, but at the same time, 3 to 4% is not so bad. It actually sounds, when they say 3 to 4%, it sounds like the bank, was it a smaller or regional bank? Because that's a strange number. So what I feel has happened, that's the loan amount or the
deposit on the Sanzeman property.
Okay, so it's strange that the bank has come back with that figure, like, oh, we still want you to put just that much in. Maybe it's an old rundown property or in a regional area, maybe a non-standard property. Is it an apartment? Do you know the type of property it is?
I don't, I'm afraid. No.
Yeah, there could be a bunch of reasons. Maybe they just want the person to have a little bit of skin in the game, even a tiny bit.
Yeah.
But it could also be, maybe they've just given a valuation. Like if it's if it's a regional bank or a minor bank versus one of the mega banks, sometimes those smaller banks will have just how they work is you don't get, they'll say we'll give you 100%, but 100% of their valuation. And maybe the valuers have said, look, it's only worth 29.9, or say 25 million yen. And maybe they can do valuation plus 20% or something like that. So maybe their internal calculation based on the valuation, the cap is that amount.
And
so they can't give anything. Even if the property price was, so you said 30 million yen, Sanzeman, even if it was 35 million yen, their cap could have still been 29.9 mil or 29 million. That is another scenario I can envisage. Do you know the bank, Daniel?
So you pay the difference. Sorry,
I think
breaking up.
Oh, Daniel's back.
Okay.
Good.
Sorry, did you get what I said at all, Ben?
Yeah, I
think yes, I did. Yeah. Thank you, yeah.
Okay. So do you know the bank? Which bank it was?
I don't, but I think it's a regional one.
Bank? Yeah. Okay. So there could be some internal assessments, or just often with the value of that with some regional banks, that's done via an in-house assessment, like just at the branch level. And they're like, look, we want to give them the loan, but we just want them to have a bit of skin in the game, which is also another reason they may have said it's 1 million yen. If it was a mega bank, then probably not. But she can try with mega banks as well. They probably won't, dick her around that much, over 1 million yen.
No.
But they may just say no as well.
Yeah, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, last little scenario here. Someone who's self-employed with variable income. I had this on LinkedIn today.
Yeah, variable income. When we say self-employed as well, it's how it looks on the tax return. So if they just have a, and let's assume either permanent resident or Japanese, whatever, we're talking more about the income assessment and employment assessment. They look at the previous year's income. Okay. And by that, when we talk about the self-employed, we're assuming they are a sole proprietor. They have business revenue and then business expenses, and the net is how much money they get, and that's how they calculate their taxable income. Let's say it was 6 million last year net profit. The year before was 4 million. The year before that was 7 million. Banks will often do the average. If it's inconsistent, they'll do the average of the past 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
Is how they'll look at it. Or it could be the lesser of the past 2 years.
Oh, okay. So
yeah.
we'll take the
So
base.
there's different banks will look at it differently. And again, that's something. Often my clients who are like that don't have so much inconsistencies, so that much of a gap to make any difference. Because often what will happen is they'll have these kind of contracts that they get regular. So although they're self-employed, it's a similar year on year. So I don't have experience with it being so different. That I do know that's how they'll assess it. However, if that is the case and it is such a big discrepancy, then I'll be on the phone to the banks and say, look, this is the past 3 years of tax returns, of self-employment income. How do you assess it? And whichever bank gives us the best deal.
Right. Okay. So you pick the bank in that situation.
Yeah. Because look, we want to get the most amount of money as possible. So depending on which bank assesses the assessment criteria, if they say, look, if the lowest of the past 2 years was actually very good, or the average of the past 3 years was better, well, which bank assesses in which way? But I can't tell you off the top of my head exactly which bank will do what.
Right.
I haven't done those kind of loans for too regularly enough to give a good answer to.
Brilliant. Okay.
But what I do want to do quickly is, if you have a minute, is just some realistic recent deals that we've done for clients in Tokyo. So the most recent one right now, which the settlement is on the 28th of April, which is in a week and a half or so, in like 10 days, is for an apartment in Meguro. It's a 15-year-old apartment, I think, 15 or 20-year-old apartment in Meguro. It was renovated about 3 years ago. Sort of a 2/3 bedroom, 70 square meter. It's 84.7 million yen is the price. The lady who's buying it, she's 52 years old. So I think she's getting a 27-year loan term. It's like 84.7 million yen is the property value. I think roughly about 5 million yen in closing costs. So it's 89.7 million yen, and she's getting the full amount. The loan got approved for the 80 actually got approved for 88 million yen. So they're giving her an extra 100,000 yen of moving costs. So she's getting the entire property without actually coming out of it at the end of the settlement with about 100,000 yen extra in her pocket to help with moving costs. And that interest rate is 0.425%.
Wow.
Variable. Okay, that's with the mega bank, and that's settling. And she's a single lady but permanent resident. And we had another one similarly was a single guy, also 0.425% in his 20s. He bought an apartment in Shinjuku, a tower mansion, for 92.5 million. And I think his loan against a 20-year-old mansion, the loan came to 97 million yen. So the bank paid everything, and he came out with I think about similarly 100,000 yen of moving costs. Not all banks will give the moving cost, but some of them will. Usually, when you do the closing costs included, you'll end up with either zero or maybe 100,000 yen, 50,000 yen out of pocket expense, because the loan is given in 100,000 yen intervals.
Our bank didn't give us moving costs, but it was a property that needed renovation, and so if we provided a quote, they would add that into the purchase loan. So we got a loan for purchase.
That's actually that's a very good point you make. So when we do that, again, in our office, we have an in-house renovation company as well. So let's say you find a place that you like, it's 60 million yen, but it needs work, or even just doesn't need a lot of work, but just needs wallpapering and a few touch-ups, and 1 million yen to 2 million yen, even say 5 million yen worth of renovations or reform, as they say in Japan. Our office can prepare the quote, and so we'll do the 60 million yen sort of home loan application, and include renovation cost, include say 3 to 4 million yen of closing costs. So that's 64 million yen plus the 5 million yen renovation costs. So that's a 69 million yen is the overall total loan. And we can do that, and the bank will just process that as one complete loan.
Wow, that is very nice.
Yeah, but they won't pay you the money directly
to renovate it, right?
Definitely, yeah. And they'll only give the money directly to the renovation company. So you can't just get a fake quote and never get the work done, just to try to get extra money out. So you can't just have a mate who does it. It needs to be, a proper registered renovation company. But yeah, you can do that, and that's at the 0 point. As far as your home loan is concerned, that's one mortgage with one interest rate. If you try to do the renovation after, then I think renovation interest rates are from 3 to 7%. If you try to get another few million yen out as a reform home loan, 1 or 2 years down the line, separate to your regular home loan.
Yeah, so definitely worth bundling it if you can, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I'm happy to go on forever. I know you guys want to wrap up. Cool. There's this again. I said I can talk your ear off regarding real estate.
Definitely. Well, I think I don't see any questions, so I think we're good for now. I think you've answered all our questions at least, and everything I've been asked over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah,
so that was really fantastic, really informative, and thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much, Ben and Daniel, for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I love everything you guys are doing at Retire Japan. I think it's fantastic. It really aligns with what I try to do is I want families to be able to position themselves in a comfortable, be financially comfortable long term. And for me, I feel real estate in Japan, at least because of the way the mortgages are structured, is a very, very efficient and effective way to do that. But what are you guys doing in Retire Japan? All the other stuff in terms of maximizing the NISA and Ideco and what have you is also very, very important. So I've been reading your books and trying to do that as well for my family at the same time.
Brilliant, and I'm sure we're going to have you on again because this was really, really good. So
yeah, well, we still have other topics I think we need to discuss and come to not an agreement on. But
we have a debate due at some point. Yeah,
we will.
So one quickly, we just had a quick question actually before you go. Somebody's asking in the chat. Thank you very much for the question, by the way. What is the trend at the moment? And so I think it means housing trend. What kind of property is popular right now?
We talk about what's popular. I think Japanese apartments and houses have been quite, nothing too significant. There's nothing new trendy. Oh, is it the Gormless Twit? I think when I hear trend, when I say that question is is that sort of price trend? I feel, and so in terms of trend, I think what's trend in terms of the housing market? It's been consistently strong for the past 15 years or so. like at any stage over the past almost 2 decades, people say, oh, it's a bit too expensive to buy now. It's a bit too expensive to buy now. Wait for it to cool. A bit too expensive. Wait for it to cool. I bought my house in 2013, and that's my first house. And that's when, and I started doing the seminars in 2014. And just that time is when the Olympics were announced. And I had people like at the seminar saying, oh, look, the Olympics were just announced. And again, from around that time, Abenomics was coming into play and becoming quite popular. Abenomics would, stimulate the economy, and people were very positive about that. And so prices were starting to grow and increase a little bit, be quite firm. And so I was having people come to the seminars again in 2014, 2015, saying, well, I'm going to wait. Now prices are too high. They've been going up for the past 2 years. Prices too high. I'm going to wait till after the Olympics and the dip, the post-Olympic dip in 2010. And we had the most horrendous outcome of an Olympic possible, which was a no spectator, no tourism, dull Olympic that we still had to go through, couldn't extend it any further mid-pandemic. And still there was no dip, right? And if you look at it, if it was anything flat it wasn't really flat, it's actually been quite strong. There was nothing happening. And it's about, the property I mentioned, the client in Shinjuku who bought for 92.5 million yen. That property was built, we just settled on that, I think 1 or 2 months ago. That property was built in 2001 or 2002. It's a tower mansion. And 92.5 mil, when we're looking at the documents, it was bought for, I think it was 59 million yen.
Originally, wow.
Originally. So about 60 million.
So I knew it was 60 million yen, and now it's 90.
Yeah, now it's 90, right? And people talk about, well, what about depreciation? Properties depreciate in Tokyo, which again is another, or houses depreciate in Japan, which again, it's another discussion. Yes, technically they depreciate by accounting terms, and a brand new one is worth more than a used one. But anyone who's bought over the past 2 decades, their property is worth more now than it was when they purchased, in Tokyo at least.
Is this the same so the same person is asking about Osaka and consequently, I presume, Nagoya, Fukuoka, other places, or is it just really relevant to Tokyo?
I know it's very relevant to Tokyo. I haven't looked at the other cities, but there are those sort of tier 2 type cities that are still also growing in population. Like Nagoya, Osaka, for example, which I think are also feeling the similar effects. Yokohama as well, Kawasaki, like places that come into Tokyo. Yes, I think those places, the population tends to be growing and their economies are increasing. Other regions, really like, rural countryside sort of places are obviously not having the same effect. Thank
you. And sorry, we were going to go, but there's one more question popped up from
Jeremy.
Very kind. Thank you, Jeremy. So is there any point refinancing a 25 million house loan at 0.9% with 30 years remaining?
No, it depends. What is that 0.9? Is it fixed or variable? If it is fixed at 0.9, no, because current fixed rates, you won't get a fixed rate at 0.9. And I because it's 0.9, I probably don't think it is variable anyway. So I don't think it's fixed anyway. It's probably never that low. But look, if that's fixed, keep it fixed.
This person says it's variable.
Yeah, okay. Current variable rates. So you can get 0.45%, 0.42% interest rates right now. So about half of that. However, you'll need to pay 2% of the loan value as establishment fee. So on a 25 million yen loan, was that 500,000 yen? Is the cost plus the scrivener, another maybe say another 200,000 or 300,000 yen for the title change fee, because you need to change the bank, whichever bank refinances. So it's maybe 700,000 yen. So I don't know if you're going to save 700,000 yen on over 30 years on 0.9, going from 0.9 to 0.5, 0.45. You could, But on 25 million, maybe not. I think.
Oh, can I suggest something?
Yeah.
I think it's worth asking the bank if you can get a better rate and threaten them to refinance without doing it.
In Japan,
I've had a couple of friends do that, but
look, the only bank that I've heard that allows you just to discount the rate would be Suruga Bank, because they start exceptionally high. But for the most part, the Japanese mega banks, my experience with them has been they won't just refinance.
Oh yeah, these are local banks. Yeah.
Yeah. Like Suruga's one, they start high, or the regional banks, they can discuss it. But if you're with a mega bank, then no, or like just any kind of reasonably large bank, it's not. And if I were just to do I just got it in front of me. So 25 million yen, yeah. I'm just doing on the simulation. 25 at 0.9%, 30 years, yeah, 0.9 and 0.5. You're going to be between a 0.4% discount. So going from 0.9% to 0.5% is 4,500 yen a month difference. Okay, so
could you repeat that? Please? I think you broke up there.
Sorry. So basically, going from 0.9% down to 0.5% in interest rates over 30 years is 4,500 yen discount in the monthly mortgage repayment. So 4,500 yen times 30 years times 12 is 1.6 million yen. So assuming it's almost 500, yeah, okay, so over 30 years, you'll save 1 million yen. Let's say 600,000 yen in filling costs, which you could actually include that in the loan as well, in general. Yeah, so it could be worth refinancing. You save 1 million yen over 30 years, not like a few thousand a month. Yeah, that's up to you.
But that is how they would calculate it and then establish whether it's worth it for them.
Oh, yeah. You just do basically a simulation. My cost now, cost after, over the life of the loan. And then there's, again, the fees associated with it. Look, but there are a lot of people, like if you're, 1 million yen it's not nothing, but over 35 years, how much is it worth that? And the problem is, what happens is, let's say you do that. You have to pay the 500,000 yen up front or get the higher loan. You don't see that value. So let's say you save 500, you said about 1.5 million yen over 30 years. So the first 500,000 yen is in 10 years, the first 10 years, second 500,000 yen in the second 10 years, and the last 500,000 last 10 years. If you sell that house within the next 10 years, you're probably out of pocket.
Right. And if you just invested the 500,000 yen, you'd have 2 million yen after 20 years or 4 million yen after 30 years. So yeah.
That's just built. Yeah. So it's a bit too unclear with that one, whether or not it's worthwhile. If it's at like 1.2, 1.4%, yeah, it's worth it. But getting just 4.4% off, I don't know if it's worth the headache.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, but you're not like that's if you manage to get that 0.9 loan, you should feel still pretty comfortable. You're not, you're not doing unjustly by, at least with interest rate terms.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thanks so much, Emil, again. I know we've taken you away from your camping trip.
Okay. Daniel's like, I got one more.
Yeah, we've dealt with buying. Any tips on selling? Oh, frozen again.
No. I'm thinking like in tips of selling. depends on your reason for selling, but generally, my thing is don't sell. If you can avoid it, don't sell. Largely because
rent it out.
Okay, rent it out. Okay, if you compare home loans versus investment loans, a home loan is 100% financing at like 0.5% interest. Investment loan is 60 to 80% financing, so 20 to 40% deposit at about 2 to 3% interest. If you have a home, which you then rent out, you're basically getting an investment property at home loan rates, which is an absurdly great scenario to be in. So if you're just going to leave the country, I'd love for you to sell it. I'll gladly deal in the sale for it. I'll give it to one of my Japanese staff members because, realistically, whoever buys it, 99% chance will be a Japanese person, right? So we put out to the Japanese market, not limited just to the foreign market in terms of sale. But we'd like to get the sales commission for it. But in terms of as an individual, what I'd recommend to a friend is if you're leaving the country, rent it out, because you have this great scenario where it's an investment property at a home loan rate. After 35 years, the rent has covered itself plus more, and you have this property you've paid nothing for. However, if you want to refinance, like if you want to buy another home, right, Daniel, I think you said something similar. You had your previous home, and then, time to sort of your family structure has changed. Maybe kids have moved out. You want to change place. You might have no option but to sell, because you need to fund the new property, and you can't have two home loans effectively, right? Or maybe you've overstretched, like you just don't have borrowing capacity to buy a second home while still having your first one. So in that case, you have no choice but to sell it. I'd look, just find a local agent who you're happy with. Most agents do a similar job. If you're in Tokyo and you want someone to help deal with it all in English, please reach out to me. We're happy to do that for you. Probably the thing I'd recommend generally is give it a professional clean. The amount of properties I've seen, where you just go in and it's dirty, and they're like, oh, look, whoever else will clean it. Like just the cupboards being dirty, the walls being just filthy. Post move out, all the dust and grime behind wherever the furniture was. It's just really unattractive. And 100,000 yen or 150,000 yen, I think we'll get more than that just in potential clients not being distracted, even if they plan a renovation right away. That's what I think will be, the only real upside. Don't try to do a renovation and really spruce it up to sell, because you won't get your money back for that. But that's probably the only
clean the windows, right? Like let the light in.
Yes, yeah, if it has light, Tokyo properties, a lot don't. Yeah, give it a simple tidy up, or actually get a professional clean to come do it. But whichever agency you use will give you the right pointers for that. They'll know your market quite well. But yeah, if you're gonna just move out, like a deal situation, don't sell. If you can keep it, hang on to it. I think it's great in terms of a investment strategy.
As long as you consider the tax that could be due on that extra income.
Oh no, but even considering that, I mean, rental yields are 4 to 6% in Tokyo. Interest rates 0.5%, and you've paid nothing for it in 35 years, even after the taxes or whatever contribution you've given. Is more than, is not going to be, is minimal compared to how much the tenant is paying off your mortgage.
Right. Yeah.
As long as you can manage the cash flow.
Right.
But realistically, most times it's kind of almost break even, if not a bit cash flow positive. If it is cash flow negative, 5,000 yen a month, 10,000 yen a month, but they're paying 200,000 yen a month off your mortgage. There's nothing else where you can do nothing and get 2 million yen a year of increase in equity.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Thank you, Emil, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yeah, I think this one could have been broken down into two, but yeah, I would love to chat and get more questions. And yeah, if anyone wants to reach me, sales@realestate.jp. Feel free to hit me up with any of your questions. We'll just schedule a consultation. Happy to chat. And
brilliant. We'll put that in the description, as they say on YouTube.
That's it. Click
Link
like,
in the
subscribe, all that. Thank you so much, guys.
All right. Cheers, Emil. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emil.
All right. Well, that was fantastic.
Wow.
Yeah, on with the show. I do want to get him back again.
Yeah, big.
I think that was really, really good, and I think we've got a lot of questions remaining. Yeah, maybe next time we can do like a formal Q&A. Elicit questions in advance and do it that way. But
yeah,
cool. Also, I think this is going to be a very useful resource here. Cool. All right.
Yeah, and it's something that affects pretty much everybody who's here long term, isn't it?
Definitely. Yeah, and I do want to have that debate with Emil about the best way to use money to ensure future happiness and stuff. But cool. Awesome. All right. So yeah, on to the news segment, I guess.
Yes. So it's a long one this time, but
it's gonna be great. It's gonna. I'm gonna lower. I've got a standing desk now, and I'm gonna lower it now. We're gonna get serious.
Right. Yeah. I'll mention the first thing actually, which is something we're pulling over from the last episode that we did, where somebody mentioned common law marriages, and do they have them in Japan? And we didn't really know.
And I promised to check it out, didn't I?
I think so. Yeah.
So I did, and I went to Wikipedia. Actually, I went to Reddit first. I googled it, and Reddit popped up, and I went to Reddit, and there was a link to Japanese Wikipedia about common law marriages.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't get a lot of detail there. So obviously they do exist in some form. It depends on where you live. So whether the local government will allow you to put a note in your juminkyo saying that you're married without registering it, which is, I guess, the terminology. So it's like kekkon mitodoke, I think the term was. So you can put that on your juminkyo. But I'm not sure what it gets you in terms of legal protections. Because like normally, if you're married to someone, then, for example, they're a family member. So if you're in hospital, they can make decisions about your treatment and so on. If you get divorced, you're entitled to a share of the, common assets of the couple. If you die, in inheritance terms, the spouse gets a very generous inheritance tax limit. They get half the estate up to 160 million yen, or like half the estate, I think, is tax-free for a spouse. So really powerful stuff. But does a common law spouse get this stuff? And I'm not sure they do. So yeah, I think we haven't answered the question, so we'll leave that. Maybe we are hoping to get a lawyer on in the future. We'll get a lawyer to join us, and we can ask them about it. Maybe.
Yeah. Okay. Other stuff in the news. What did we have? Kokumin Nenkin Kikin. Oh yes. I don't have it with me, but my wife got in the post
the packet.
Yes, the packet inviting her to contribute extra to her pension. And so obviously she's paying into the Kokumin Nenkin. And then it said, do you want to do this extra kick-in, the voluntary fund thing? The reason why she got the letter is because she signed up for the extra, what is it, like 400 yen or something a month that you pay to give you that sort of bonus when you retire, which we've mentioned before and is a very good deal.
Yeah,
and so this
is
saying, sorry,
Fuka Nenkin is great. It's amazing, but it's tiny. So it's mathematically incredible, but minuscule. So.
Yeah. And so this is effectively them saying, oh, if you do that, why don't you do the kick-in as well? And we want to know, is it a good deal? What should we do?
Well, the problem with Kokumin Nenkin Kikin is it uses the same allowance as Ideco. So if you're doing Ideco, you can't do Kokumin Nenkin Kikin. If you do Kokumin Nenkin Kikin, it uses up your Ideco allowance. So my take is that for most people, Ideco is better. So Ideco gives you tax-free investing, gives you an income tax break. It's great. Kokumin Nenkin Kikin gives you the income tax break. That's the same. But instead of investing, you're buying extra Nenkin, so extra pension. It's quite a complicated system. I've got a blog post about it. We'll stick that in the description, as usual. But basically, I think for most people, you're going to get much better returns by investing yourself, assuming you invest in, a broad stock market fund inside Ideco. You're likely to end up with more doing that than you would with Kokumin Nenkin Kikin. Now, the people that might want to use Kokumin Nenkin Kikin, which is a bit of a mouthful, are people who want to diversify. So maybe you've already got a lot of stock market investments and you want something that's not correlated, that's a bit more stable. This might be a good option. If you're American and you can't use Ideco because it would be a PFIC and you'd get in trouble with the IRS, you can use Kokumin Nenkin Kikin. So if you're an American paying Kokumin Nenkin, this might be a good way to reduce your Japanese income taxes and get ready for retirement without having US hassles, because it counts as a pension rather than a bank account or an investment. So you wouldn't have to report it on FBAR and all that. So yeah, that's my take. I think for you, for your wife, as long as you're using Ideco, that might be better. If your wife is uncomfortable investing or using Ideco, then this might be a more kind of socially acceptable alternative because it's familiar. It's Nenkin rather than some scary stock market thing. So that's how I'd look at that.
Okay, that's helpful.
Yeah, my wife gets those packets all the time, even though she's maxing out Ideco. So I'm guessing they don't communicate very well with each other.
Doesn't sound like it.
We asked about it once, and they've sent us the letter every year since. So,
that's nice. They keep in touch.
Yes.
Next news item. What do we have? Oh, Roth IRA.
I was going to talk about this because I was very excited, but I got it wrong. So I saw an article by Andrew Hallam that was talking about Roth some things, and I misheard it as Roth IRAs.
Is he the millionaire teacher guy? The guy that wrote
He is, yeah. So he's the millionaire teacher, the millionaire expat, and so on. And he writes articles for websites. But he wrote one about this, and I was like, "Ooh, that's interesting," because I thought U.S. expats have this thing called the foreign earned income exclusion, which means that the first, because they've got this tax hassle with having to pay taxes because they're American. The first $120,000 or something is you can exclude. You can say this is foreign earned income and I'm not going to be taxed on it. Which means that people can't use their income to pay into a Roth IRA because you need taxable income to do that. And I read this article that said you could, so I got really excited. But the article was not about Roth IRAs. It was about Roth 401ks, which are a form of employer-based tax-exempt accounts, which is very exciting if you have an employer that offers them. Most people don't. So it wasn't, I got it completely wrong. I got very excited about something that wasn't particularly useful for most people. So yeah, we are going to link to the article in the description if you want to check it out. But yeah, this was a bit of a damp squib, really.
Oh, okay. Right. Sorry.
I was very excited for about 2 days, and then I reread it, and I was like, "Oh, okay."
Well, let's talk about more positive news then. Your plane tickets.
Yes. So I finally got a plane ticket to Europe. So I've been trying to book my trip for the last year, maybe. Ever since I stopped working last year, I've been trying to book a flight home to see family. But I was trying to use air miles. And with the reduced flight numbers, and I get the impression all the airlines would rather sell their tickets rather than give them away as awards for people with air miles. So it's been really hard to book. Like ANA, I found are releasing tickets like a few days out, so which is completely useless because they only allow you to book return tickets. You can't book one-way award tickets on ANA. which means that you can get the outbound, but you can't book the return in time, and then they cancel the entire thing. So I just got really frustrated and ended up using United Miles to book instead. So I'm going to be flying with Austrian Airlines, so from Tokyo to Vienna, I think, and then from Vienna to Germany, which is where I'm going.
No, it's funny you should say that, because Austrian Airlines came up in my search, because I was also trying to go back to Europe, to the UK this summer. And like you, I use air miles. But I wasn't really sure what to do, because I got a bunch of, first of all, hot tip, what used to be, what's it called? The hotel chain. It's now Marriott. It used to be Starwood or
Starwood, yeah.
Yeah,
SPG.
Okay. Yeah, that's it. SPG credit card is now Marriott credit card. From what I've seen in YouTube videos, this is the one to get if you want to maximize on air miles, because you collect Marriott points, and two good things about that. One is that they never expire, at least in their current rules, they never expire. And the second one is that you can convert them into, I think, there we go. You got I haven't got the new one yet. It's still the old design of mine.
Yep.
The second benefit is that you can convert them into miles with, I think it's about 30 different airlines. So not all of them, but most airline companies will accept Marriott points. You convert them generally at a rate of 3-1 with bonuses for most airlines.
Yeah, that's where I got my United Miles from, actually. I transferred
right.
180,000 Marriott points into United Miles and did it that way.
We're basically a mirror of each other, aren't we?
We're the same person. You're an AI-generated avatar.
Yes, I had a bunch saved up over the year, obviously not traveling over the pandemic and stuff. So I wasn't sure which airline to convert them into. And then I found, rather than looking at the three main alliances, so we've got One World, you've got SkyTeam and Star Alliance. There is a website called Point.me. There's also one called Expert Fly, but I found that quite hard to use. But there's one called Point.me. That's the URL. And you can go on there. You can only search day by day. So you can't do like a search for a whole month or something. But the good thing about it is you go for a particular date, and then it will tell you which airlines on which alliance will give you a flight for points, and then how much. So what I did, I just went through the month of June, and it'd take a little while, but every date in June going through, and then some days I would have to pay a lot and I don't be able to use, I would have to pay loads of air miles. I think 700,000 air miles for a trip or something. And then another time I found air miles where it was, I think, 45,000 air miles for the same trip, but the following day. And so that was very helpful. And so thanks to that, I then switched my airlines to Delta, and I'm flying back with KLM. The reason why I did Delta is because I'd already got some Delta air miles. And again, they never expired, whereas JAL and maybe ANA do. So yeah, pick your sort of flight clubs carefully.
It's a rabbit hole. Like before I got into money, I was into air miles.
I wrote a book on it or something, didn't you?
I did. I've got an ebook on Amazon about that. Yeah. But it's a rabbit hole. And at one point, I kind of woke up and I said, "Wait, if I put all this time and effort into learning about money, I could just buy my air tickets and not mess with all this air mile stuff." So so it's interesting, and I think there's a Pareto principle. Whereas if you learn, the first 20%. That's where you get the most utility from. You don't need to learn the deep 80%. I mean, that's for the people that do it all the time. And if you're American, of course, you have access to American credit cards where you get these insane sign-up bonuses, and you can basically fly for free. But we don't have that in Japan. So
no.
The best we've got is the Marriott Bonvoy Amex card.
So the Marriott Amex is a good card, and then Point.me, no affiliation here, by the way. Is a good website for working out how many miles you need, rather than going to the individual airlines websites, which drive me crazy.
Oh yeah. I mean, often they don't list all the flights, I find. So yeah,
really?
It's good to go and check out some forums and get some advice if you're looking for a specific trip.
Yeah.
Cool.
Right, we're going to skip over the next topic on weight loss, I think, aren't we, Ben? Is that right? You don't want to talk about that?
Well, I knew you were going to try and stop me talking about this. No, I'm basically. I don't know. I don't think we have enough time to go into this properly. But yeah, I've been trying to lose weight. I've got a goal to lose to get down to 77 kilos by September. That's because it's my healthy weight, and also it's lightweight for jiu-jitsu, and there's a competition in September that I would like to enter as a lightweight. Right, and recently I was a heavyweight, and you don't want to be a heavyweight if it's all flab and not muscle. So that's that. And I've been playing with like fasting and stuff, with a view to doing that. Did a 60-hour fast last week, which was it's basically 2.5 days. So I had dinner on Wednesday, and then I had lunch on Saturday.
So Thursday and Friday, no food. I mean, you can drink during this time, I'm sure.
Yeah, I drank water and black coffee, and I took it's kind of electrolyte solution thing.
Okay.
And it was quite easy actually. I did a 3-day fast when I was in school when I was 14, and that was really hard. I remember that being like tough and like an amazing kind of achievement. And this time it was easy. It was like, okay.
So that's like if I just stopped eating now and then next eat on Thursday lunchtime, and I just drink water and stuff tomorrow the next day. That sounds crazy.
Yeah, but
I guess the payoff is worth it, yeah?
I don't know. Actually, having done it, like I think 2 days was fine, and the extra 12 hours was kind of like a bit of a blow. Like,
right.
I'm not sure that last bit was worth it. And also, you have to kind of plan the refeeding. So when you start eating again, I should have planned that a bit better. I didn't really plan it, so I ended up eating a bunch of crap and not feeling great. So what I've read since is that you should probably start with like liquids and probably protein and stuff that's not gonna kind of upset your stomach if you're not used to eating for a while.
So you sort of gradually get back into
next time I will plan that a bit better, I think. But no, it was a pretty positive. Basically, I'm experimenting at the moment, so I'm trying to figure out what works for me and what doesn't work for me. So,
and are you on target for your September goal?
I don't know, because the first few kilos is the easiest. Like it's quite easy to lose the first few kilos, and then you kind of hit a plateau, and then it's all about carrying on. Plus this trip to Europe. I mean, generally speaking, if I go to Europe, I'm going to put weight on, right? Not lose it. So,
yeah, that's my aim when I go to Europe.
I'm going to Spain. I mean, Spain has very good cheap food. So yeah, that's going to be tough, I think.
Okay. So there's another one we'll continue over the podcast episodes. Watch this space.
Yeah. I'll come back crying. I'll be like, oh God, I'm back up to 95 now. So.
Right, we'll stop you there before you get carried away, and we'll move on, shall we?
Probably for the best, yes.
Right. Switching over to economic news now, not quite as fun, but I just wanted to cover this quickly because I find this sort of macroeconomics interesting. Kazuo Ueda is the new Bank of Japan governor, and that was announced a while ago, but he actually started his job, I think it was last week. And his sort of announcement thing was that he apparently underscored the need of retaining monetary easing, which in simple English means he's going to continue the existing policy and not suddenly raise interest rates. And although inflation is rising around the world and in Japan, he doesn't see the need right now to start raising interest rates to control inflation, which means, going back to our discussion about housing and stuff, it looks like there isn't a rush to grab those cheap interest rates, those low interest rates, because they're going to rise anytime soon. From what he said, interest rates are unlikely to rise in the foreseeable future. Yeah,
which might mean that we have a weak yen going forward.
Oh, that's true. Yes. Yeah.
If you're planning to travel abroad, that's going to be a bit of a shock, probably.
Yeah.
with the weak yen. I'm not looking forward to prices in Germany at this exchange rate. But
so maybe you will be okay with the food after all. You won't be able to afford it.
yeah, I won't be able to afford to eat out, so it's all good.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
And
so
then the
that's
last
not
thing
guaranteed
is
stuff, but
is your kind of exciting news, which I was really impressed with. I saw it on Twitter.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you've created a monster, I see.
Oh, this is AI. So people might know I'm a bit of a techie guy. I'm terrified by AI, but I'm also in love with it because it's just so incredible what it can do. And I was inspired by a podcast that was just it was AI speaking basically, and so I tried to make the same thing, but for Japan. So I made this thing called Japan Daily News, and basically that's what it does on this. What it says on the tin. It's JapanDailyNews.com, a podcast of just 2 minutes a day with a summary of the news, and it actually takes it from the NHK Japanese feed, and AI translates it and summarizes it into English. And so what I like about that is that it's a machine doing it. It's not a human, so there's no human bias in the translation. It's from a direct Japanese source. Whether you trust NHK or not, that's a different matter. But it's taking direct sort of Japanese source and then getting you as close to that as possible thanks to AI.
Okay, so
and
it's
then
not
I get
English
a
news about Japan. It's Japanese news about Japan, and it translates it for you.
Yes, exactly.
So you're getting the kind of authentic news that.
Yes, that's the aim. Yeah. It's as close to that Japanese as you can get, really. And then I use a different service to take those summaries and then read them out. So it's AI sort of created news summaries, and then a computer created voice will read it out. It records it, and then it uploads it onto the podcast, and your Apple Podcast app or whatever will play it every day.
How many subscribers do you have?
I don't know, but yesterday when I checked, I had 8 listens. So I've only just launched it. It's still very low. And yeah.
And how many of those listeners are AI?
Oh, good question. So anyway, speaking of AI, and sometimes at some point it's going to be difficult to distinguish like who's human, who's AI. This is a really good example. So I'd just like to play today's podcast for you, okay?
Welcome to Japan Daily News on April 17th, 2023. In an effort to prevent children from being left behind on school buses, manufacturers are developing safety devices, such as cameras that monitor the inside of the vehicle.
So that is a computer-generated voice reading out AI-written news summary. And
translated from the Japanese.
It's incredible.
Why are we doing this stream? I mean,
yeah. So I've been obviously, I need to listen to it every day just to check that it is actually working and not spouting rubbish. And occasionally, there's a sort of weird pronunciation. I think Rakuten, they pronounced it Rakuten or something a little bit strange. But generally, it's amazingly accurately written. The voice is incredibly human-like, and I made it for a bit of fun. So I'm just going to leave it there and leave it running. But I think we're going to see a whole load more content produced like this. Possibly, it's going to be a load of rubbish produced, and we won't be able to tell whether it's real or not. But on the other hand, it opens up so many more opportunities for individuals to create stuff that normally you would need a whole lot more resources for.
Yeah, you'd need like an office to do that. Last year, wouldn't you?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy.
So yeah, thank you for letting me share that. And somebody's just in the chat. How much longer can we English teachers survive with AI taking over everything? I personally think AI is going to assist humans rather than take over. But at the moment, it's so open. We really don't know.
I don't know. Like I've been saying for years that once someone makes personalized language learning using AI or algorithms or stuff where you get fed content, at your level that you're interested in, why would you go to class? If you can just watch videos and read stuff on things you're interested in at your level that gets harder progressively as you go. That's the best way to learn a language. And if you've got AI that can talk to you now, so patiently and correct your mistakes and be interested in what you're saying, then for free, why would you pay for lessons? I think for the general adult market, it's pretty bleak. I think going forward, kids lessons different because kids is there's a social element and stuff, but
subject. Sorry, I think I broke up there.
Yeah, a little bit.
I find it is wrong sometimes, and it says it confidently, so I don't know if it's wrong or not. But anyway, there's a teething pain.
Yeah, I think that's going to get better though, isn't it?
Anyway, I think that's all the news there for us to cover.
Cool. Yes. All right, we got our deep dive for this week.
Right, sometimes we're breaking up, I think. But anyway, we've done the news and we're ready to go on to the next section.
Yeah, which is the deep dive. And this week, you actually came up with this week's topic.
I do. This is something I'm interested in, and I think some of our viewers will hopefully be too. So we talk about share investing, and generally the advice is go for an index fund, a cheap index fund that tracks like World Index or something like that. You don't have to think about it, and you're going to do all right in the long run. But I can't help but enjoy researching individual stocks. I tend to go for things that I think are good value and have a relatively high dividend. When I find two that are kind of similar, I then look at something else that's going to swing me one way or the other, and that is the Kabunushi Yutai is the name in Japanese, which would translate as gifts, I suppose.
Shareholder benefits. Yeah, it's how I think the kind of general common translation, shareholder benefits. And this is fairly unique to Japan. I haven't seen it in many other countries.
No, I haven't, no.
And
so I have a few examples.
Excellent.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so in Japan, this is actually something that motivates a lot of people to invest. That they're interested in the gifts instead of the dividend or instead of the potential capital growth. They're looking at the gifts, and one of the most famous investors in Japan is called Mr. Kiritani, I think. He's often on TV being featured, and his whole thing is he's got maybe a couple of 100 million yen's worth of shares, and they're all focused on what shareholder gifts he can get, and he lives off the shareholder gifts exclusively. He doesn't spend any money, so he eats out at restaurants that he has vouchers for, and he gets clothes as shareholder gifts, and in his apartment is this mess of like boxes and envelopes of stuff he's been sent. And one of my favorite Twitter people that I follow, Cash That Check, he describes him as, America has Warren Buffett, who's one of the richest men in the world, and Japan has Kiritani, who lives like a rat. So it's a different kind of emphasis there.
Yeah. Right, so people might be wondering, okay, how can you live on these gifts? And the reason why, it's effectively the company's way of saying thank you for being a shareholder. And sometimes you need to have a certain amount. So usually the minimum amount you could buy of shares in Japan, if you go to a proper broker, and I'm not talking about you can buy sort of incremental shares with a mobile app with some brokers, but I'm talking about the proper broker where you have to buy a minimum of 100 shares, for example, in a particular company.
Yeah, your lot size. So to buy or sell is going to be 100 shares.
Yes. And so one very simple example, this is a company called Nakamoto Pax, which actually hasn't done so well for me. It's gone down a couple of percent, but it's okay because they sent me a core card for being a shareholder. And so this is I think it's 2,000 yen. Oh, here we go. It actually says on it, if you own 100 and more shares, you get 1,000 yen per year. If you own 200 or more shares, you get 2,000 yen core card. And so I can now go and take this to Konbini or wherever and buy stuff. So yeah, collect enough of these, you could probably live off it. That's probably quite hard. But anyway, what about when you want to go and have some fun? You want to go and travel around a bit? You want to stay at a hotel? That's okay, because there are also some companies that will give you either free or discounted hotel stays. This is PAL Group, which has done very well for me. It's gone up like 2.5 times since I bought it. They've just gone on a tear recently. I like to say it's my skill in stock picking, but I think I'm just lucky. Anyway, they have a nice hotel up in Kinugawa called Kinugawa Onsen Hotel. And we've been there a couple of times actually using this. Gives you half price rates. And it also very conveniently tells you when it's going to be off peak, high peak. So if you pick an off peak time, use this, then you can stay very, very cheaply. And the way it works is, again, depending on how many shares you actually own, they send you a number of these vouchers. And you can use these in any of the PAL Group shops. And so 3 coins is quite a sort of common, at least around here it is. It's like Daiso, 100 yen shop, but it's posh.
Oh, okay.
It's 300 yen. So it's called
nice.
3 coins. And you get 15%, like a 10.
Oh, sorry, Daniel, you're breaking up a little bit there. I think we've lost Daniel temporarily. I've had a couple of these Kabanushi Yutai stocks.
Okay.
Hey, you back?
Okay.
Sorry,
yeah,
you broke up there for a bit.
Okay. The way we use these, we just phoned up in advance. Sometimes you have to phone, you can't book online. So we phoned up and said, we're going to be using these. And sure, just come along, hand these over at the reception when you check in. And that's it. So it's nice and easy. One thing I think you have got similar experience of is airlines. So Jal and Anna will both give you these, again, depending on how many shares you got. I think it's twice a year with Jal. It's for discount airline tickets. But I don't know about you, but I find it's not a good deal that it seems to be. It gives you a lower price, but it's low compared to their standard fare. And if you book it in advance, you're going to get it even cheaper. So
So these things are useful if you have to go at the last minute, because you can always book the shareholder price, and I think it's about half the regular price. But if you get one of their 90 days in advance fares, it's even cheaper. So
So
I found I didn't use mine all that much actually. I used to have ANA ones back in the day, but I think I only used it once. And I don't have the shares anymore. So
so I'm the same. I haven't really used it. And Jeremy in the comments has pointed out a lot of people sell those benefits on Mercari, and I've seen them on Yahoo Auction as well. So if you're not a shareholder and you want these benefits, not just the JAL ones, but all of them, I think generally you can find people selling it. I'm not sure if that's in the terms and conditions, if it's not allowed or allowed, but people do it anyway. So
there's also shops normally around stations that sell stuff like this. Like physical shops that you can go into where you can buy discounted tickets and things, and they'll often have these as well.
The ones I've shown so far don't
shop
have my name
for tickets. Oh, it's actually got your name on it.
No, the ones I've shown so far don't have my name on, but I do have one from Samti. That's actually a property company, and they have a couple of hotels in Tokyo where you can get discount, but in your name. When you check in, you have to prove that you are that person. So do be careful.
So you can't sell those on Mercari.
No, and especially as a person with a non-Japanese face and a non-Japanese name, I don't think I'm going to get away with it. To use these ones, you go onto JAL or Anna and book the shareholder ticket. You search for the tickets as you would normally do, and it'll give you various prices, the full fare, the flex fare, and all that kind of stuff. And one of them will be the shareholder fare. You book it as normal, and then when you go to pay, it will give you a page where you type in the number. So to get the number, you scratch off this, type it in, and it works very, very well.
So I guess to sell them, they'd have to be not scratched off.
Yes. Oh, actually, yes. So I have seen when you buy them, they will obviously have a photo of it and show that it's not scratched off, and then you have to trust that is the thing you're going to get. So do look at their rating. They'll either send this to you through the post, or sometimes they will say, "I'll scratch it off and send you the number by sort of direct message." So if you're in a rush, you want to get it that same day.
Right.
That is possible. But again, you have to trust the seller. And finally, the last thing I want to show is, again, a popular thing with some companies, and that's they'll give you a catalog and you choose. This is actually Oryx. And from next year, they're going to stop doing the catalog. No, it's such a shame. Anyway, they actually have two. They have the A catalog and the B catalog. I'm getting excited here. And depending on how many or how long you've held the shares, you can choose from the A catalog, which is I think the higher value stuff, or the B catalog. And a lot of it is food. Sometimes it'll be like a stuffed toy or something like that. It looks like maybe, or some towels, of course. So once a year you'll get a little postcard where you can choose what you want, and then they'll send you that. And it takes a little while, but it's nice. One day a box will arrive, and it's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Thanks very much.
It's a bit like the Furusato Nose stuff, isn't it?
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah,
where you get your stuff and then you forget about it, and then a few weeks later you get some mangoes or something. Like
yes. So there you go. Their perks. Don't choose stocks solely based on what gifts they're going to give you. But for me, I find it fun. It's a good way of getting people motivated, I think, into stock investing. If they're not that interested, anything to help people invest, I think, is good. But yeah, do look at other fundamental factors in addition before you.
Yeah, I would stick to, this is the play part of your portfolio is what I generally recommend. So, do something sensible with most of your money, and then on the side, play with crypto or get Kabunushi Yutai, or, do your deep value in stock picking and stuff like that.
That's it. Good point,
yeah. My wife has a couple of Yutai stocks. Like we got some plastic shovels last year for the garden. Very exciting. And a jumbo case of pot noodles from one of those catalogs. So,
oh, lovely. Yeah.
For the kids, the grandkids like them. So,
yeah, that's what you say. Yeah.
yeah. I'm on a diet, so.
Oh, of course.
Like, can I tell you about fasting?
Moving on. Yeah, so there you go. That's the deep dive. I'm sure people will discuss this in the RetireJapan forum as well. So if people have got questions about specific ones, then yeah.
Not so much. I've had questions personally, but the best way to look at these things is to just do a Google search for Kabunushi Yutai. And there's a whole bunch of aggregator sites that kind of highlight the best ones and describe what they are. And a lot of these companies pay a dividend as well. So you want to look at the combination of dividend plus whatever the gift is and see what that gets you. Like McDonald's is popular. You get a bunch of vouchers, Disney, I think the Disney Corporation one, you get discounted tickets to the park or something. So there's a whole bunch of different stuff out there.
Yes, that's one I looked at actually. So I did do some analysis of
Oriental Holdings or something, is it?
That's it. Oriental Land is the name of the one that will give you a Disneyland pass. But when I looked at it, I thought, oh, Disneyland pass, that'd be nice. Some would enjoy that. But then you have to buy a minimum of 100 shares, and the Oriental Land shares at the moment is roughly 2,000 yen, 20,000 yen a share. So you would have to spend
2 million yen for a free pass.
2 million yen, 200,000 yen to get a free Disneyland pass, and it works out about 0.6, 0.7% of the value of the shares. So yeah, maybe it's not so good just choosing shares based on that. You might be cheaper off just buying a Disneyland pass. Yeah. Same with McDonald's as well. It was pretty high what you have to buy in terms of shares just to get some meal vouchers. But anyway,
but they've got that name recognition, haven't they? So a lot of people are going to go for that anyway because they don't understand the concept of comparing the total return or whatever.
Yeah.
Cool. We have a quick question about Furusato Nose. I got meat. I don't use it very much, but I got meat. My wife tends to go for vegetables. What do you get, Daniel?
Beer.
Awesome.
Because you've got to drink it at some point, and in particular, it lasts a long time. So
it's true. Yeah.
I haven't bought for a while, but bought beer just because it's going to be there and eventually get drunk. I did try and be a bit sneaky, and I wanted to get something that I could sell. And so I got a knife, a very nice Zwilling knife. And so it's filling, and is it Kyocera? I want to say Kyocera. There's some sort of like German-Japan collaboration, and they make these very, very nice kitchen knives in Japan. And I got one of those. I put it on Mercari, and nobody's bought it. It's been weeks now, so my plan hasn't quite worked out.
That didn't work out then.
No. So I'm going to stick to beer.
Cool. All right. So, last section, isn't it?
Oh yes, yeah.
So we're going to just quickly go over some interesting forum threads from this week. So there was a really good thread about what people do for work. So, outside of English teaching, for example, mainly because it resurrected a previous thread where people on the forum basically said what they did. And all the active members at the time were posting. It's fascinating because there's some really unusual jobs that people are doing out there that I had no idea was even an option in Japan. So definitely worth looking at that thread. And remember, you can look at the forum even if you don't join it. You don't need to be a member to look at the content. So I really recommend checking out that thread. Another one was about whether it's worth getting cancer coverage with your mortgage. So most mortgages have life insurance included. But sometimes you get the option to add on kind of serious illness or cancer and so on. So that was quite an interesting topic.
We had that actually, and so we decided to get it, and then we researched it and changed our minds and phoned up a few days later and then cancelled it. And I think we ended up leaving it cancelled, but we were really unsure about that at the time. It's not the kind of thing you expect when you're focusing on the house, and then you got this extra decision. Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, my bank, I got it for free. So I think because I was under 40, I was 39 when I got my mortgage. So they added the cancer kind of option for free. So if I get cancer, then it'll pay off the mortgage basically.
Right. Oh. What was the general consensus on the forum?
It was check out how much cancer insurance costs otherwise and compare basically, because often the mortgage add-ons are a percentage, so they increase your interest rate.
Yes. Yeah.
So you have to figure out how much that costs over the time of the loan and then compare it to maybe getting third-party insurance separately and see which one makes more sense, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's what we did.
Cool. And then there was a thread about how to look for real estate. Quite topical, given that we were just talking to Emil just now. But it was basically which websites to use to look for mansions in particular. This is from someone who was not living in Japan, but they're thinking of moving here in the near term, and they want to find somewhere to live. Well, at least see what the options are like. One thing, and then the next one's quite interesting because it was about what to do with a car if you're leaving Japan temporarily. So this is someone who's going to go and work somewhere else for a couple of years. They've got a car that they like, and they were wondering what they could do with it. So, can you put it in storage? Can you lease it out to someone? And the consensus was that no, that's just a complete hassle. Just sell it now because the used car prices are really high at the moment. Sell it now, and then when you come back, buy another one. And you might even make a profit, because if used car prices go back to normal, when they come back, they'll be like half the price. So
yeah. Oh, speaking of cars, actually, I was speaking to somebody the other day. They ordered a new Toyota pickup, whatever it was, and there was a 2-year waiting list. And so during that time, they got another car, and the resale value of that car held up so well, they've effectively paid, I think, like $1,000 or something to own this new car, effectively, or nearly new car for a couple of years. And now finally the new one is ready. So they've been forced into what turned out to be a really good situation, really good deal.
Yeah, like that's why used car prices are so high, because you can't buy new ones because of the semiconductor shortage or something.
Right, still. Yeah.
Well, it's the knock-on effect. Everyone was waiting 2 years, so we haven't even worked through that inventory yet, and people want to buy more cars now. So yeah, my daughter and her husband are trying to buy a car, but yeah, it's the same thing. 2-year waiting lists. So it's like, Cool. And then the next one was someone wanted to buy gold. Looking at the various options for that.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got your various steps, right? So you can buy gold coins and hide them under the mattress or something, and then you can buy gold that is held for you somewhere. Which actually I've got some gold in Switzerland in a vault somewhere, or at least they told me I have. I've never seen it.
Yeah, you have to go with a trustworthy company if you're going to do that.
And then the next step up is to buy a fund that actually buys the gold themselves. So they own the gold and you own a piece of the gold. And then the last one is just to buy a normal fund that probably doesn't own gold. They've just got options to buy it or something. And those are your various options.
Yes.
My take on gold, even though I have some, it's probably not worth owning because it's not a productive asset. It's going to maybe hold its value, maybe go up and down. In the meantime, I don't think it's going to grow as much as a productive asset might. And then the last one was this really interesting and detailed thread on maternity leave, on the law, on regulations, and how it works. So incredibly useful for anyone who might be facing that kind of situation where they want to take maternity leave or childcare leave.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really great thread for that. And that was it. So those are the interesting forum threads this week. And then, this is the kind of Q&A bit. If anyone's got questions in the chat.
We do. I'm going to stick with the gold theme, actually, because 2001 Lex Leonis, good username. Gold is insurance, not an investment. That's his opinion. Or his or her, their opinion.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the old, this is kind of really kind of thing where, 100 years ago, if you had an ounce of gold, you could buy a suit. And now if you have an ounce of gold, you can buy a suit, kind of thing. That kind of holds its value over time, but it's not going to particularly grow, probably.
Yeah. We did have a question earlier on, which was about, kind of property related. So Jeremy again, not sure of the best time to ask this, but I was wondering if you could speak, I'll show this on the screen actually, on any farm, energy farm, and solar panels. They would be fitted onto my existing house, so a higher interest loan. Unfortunately, I think basically the question is
because it's not a mortgage, it's a loan to buy the panels.
Right, yeah. I know you feel strongly about solar. You got a blog article about solar and how we should be doing our bit for the climate. I guess they're asking about the financial side, but what do you think about that? Is it worth doing?
Yeah, I don't know. If I live in a mansion, so it's not an option for us, unfortunately. But if we had a house, I would have solar panels. I don't think I'd buy a battery yet, because under the current, how the solar panels work at the moment, so they guarantee to buy your electricity off you for a certain rate. That basically means that you can pay off your solar panels within a certain number of years. I think it's 10 years or 20 years. And then at the end of that time, when your preferential rate ends, that's when you want to buy a battery, because batteries will be cheaper then. And then you can store your own energy and use it when the solar panels aren't working, at night or whatever. So eventually, I mean, you'd want to be self-sufficient, I think, so that you generate your own energy, and then you store your energy in batteries, and then you use your energy, and then you're kind of off the grid. But that's kind of my goal. In terms of economics, I'm not sure it works. In terms of reducing your emissions and being more independent and being a bit more kind of resilient in earthquakes and natural disasters when the power's off. I think it'd be very useful to have a battery that lasts a couple of days, or to have solar panels. And especially if you've got an electric car, being able to put your own electricity into it would make it even cheaper. So yeah, I don't know. There's a few articles on the site. It'd be a good question to ask in the forum, I think.
That's a good point. Yeah. I did see when we looked at getting a car, there was I think it was a government campaign at that point, where they would subsidize or refund part of the cost if you bought a new electric car and you had a particular method of powering it from your home. Or maybe it was they subsidized the cost of the
Charger.
the charger. If you got the charger
Fitted
connected
into
to solar panels on your home, then they would refund some of that. But it was definitely, I can't remember. I think whether the campaign's finished anyway, but there could be some government subsidies out there that are worth looking at.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, we got an interesting one. International schools for kids. Yeah, this is entirely a personal decision, I think, how important it is to you and how happy you or your children will be in local schools. So I know the entire spectrum. So I know people who went to only local schools and had a great experience. And I know people that went to, exclusive international schools the whole time and had a good experience, and vice versa, people that didn't have good experiences. So I think it's a matter of doing lots of research and figuring out what your kind of goal is, and also what kind of children you have, because children are all individuals and different, and they're going to fit certain situations better. So yeah, and also it's incredibly expensive. So, look at the opportunity cost of that. So, if you're going to pay that much money for school, could you possibly, go to a local school and then have summers in a different country where they can get the cultural and language aspects and so on? And I know people have done that. So
yeah,
we
were in this situation. So ours has now left school, but he went to a local Japanese elementary school, and then from that point, from middle school onwards, went to an international school, which we had to pay a lot for. But that was kind of our plan right from the start, because especially living in Japan, I was his only exposure to English, really. And so he's very Japanese focused, but we really wanted him to have bilingual ability. And so we were not happy, but we were prepared to pay for an international school to ensure that he did have that bilingual upbringing. And now, he speaks both languages, and reads and writes both languages fine. So we're very happy about how that turned out. One other thing that struck me was when he was at the local school, I would go along to the parents, you can attend the class. Sorry, that's the heater switching off. You can attend the class open days and the watch and stuff. And I always found that really interesting, because it's like the insight into Japanese schools every time. When he started at the international school, he said, "Oh, it's so cool. Like, I don't stand out anymore. And when we go to visit, he doesn't feel weird." And I had no idea about this, but he felt really uncomfortable every time I went along, because I stood out like a sore thumb and made him feel different in front of all his friends. So it's not a financial sort of factor, but it's worth thinking about how it's going to make the child feel that they might not be able to.
And that's going to depend on where you are as well, because like some areas have more international families than others.
Mm-hmm.
So even in local schools, in some areas, you're going to have a lot of different diversity. In some places, you're not going to have any at all. So that's something worth looking at.
Yeah.
Cool. On a related note, same thing, isn't it? It's basically you're going to have to figure out what works for you and your family. And if it requires a compromise, then it requires a compromise. But I think just being aware, it sounds like we need to do a video about this. About international schools. Actually, our next guest.
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah.
Is going to be an international school principal. So let's bounce all this to next month, when we're going to be talking to an international school principal, and we'll get a bunch of questions in advance and go through them.
Yeah.
Now this one. I'm not sure. I think I've seen. Actually, sorry, I'm not going to say anything because I don't know. But I suspect it might not be okay. You might need a license, maybe, but I'm not sure. Do you have any experience with this, Daniel?
I don't. I know they changed the law, didn't they, a few years ago to sort of make it a little bit easier for companies to brew alcohol with a license for that. But I don't know about personally. I used to do it as well as a student, and it was drinkable, but nothing great.
I used to do it when I was at school. Like,
That's cool. Oh, okay.
turn fizzy stuff into alcohol by adding yeast. It was disgusting. It was absolutely disgusting.
Yeah. Oh dear.
We were just looking for alcohol though, rather than something nice.
Yeah. When we're
Yeah, I
stuck
don't
like
know.
this, the Retire Japan forum is a really good place because there's so many people with different areas of expertise. So it might be good.
Actually, but
sorry,
you know,
Kirby,
let's maybe try and figure this out for next month.
okay then. Right.
We'll add it to next month's agenda. Cool. All right. I think this is our longest stream yet.
It is. Thank you very much, listeners.
2 hours,
and
20
watchers,
minutes.
for sticking with us.
Thanks, Emil, for the amazing guesting.
Yeah.
And thanks for all the questions, guys. It's been really good. Yep. Next month, probably June 22nd, although we're still finalizing that. We'll be talking to an international school principal in Japan and taking lots of questions and probably talking about fasting again. So you can't stop me, Daniel. I'm going to keep talking about it.
Right, you are. Okay.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. Have a good night. And if you're watching this on the replay, do subscribe to the channel and watch some more videos because it helps us out. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Goodbye.